Okay, welcome. This is our fifth episode. I'm here with
Number five.
number five, yeah.
All right.
Special guest, Travis Wilson. And is it Veritas?
Veritas, yeah, thanks.
Veritas Architecture and Design. Is that, I saw on your bio, you're a bit of a Greek nerd?
Greek, Latin. So I was a Latin nerd in high school, and I graduated or maybe reverted to a Greek nerd in my adulthood.
Yeah.
So so it's like the classical stuff.
Is that kind of where you pulled the name from then?
Yeah. So Veritas is just Latin for truth.
Yeah, for truth, yeah.
Yeah, for
nice.
sure.
That's what I was wondering. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So really, we just kind of get into it here, and maybe give me a little bit of history of your path to Veritas.
Yeah, for sure. So knew I wanted to be an architect early on when I was a kid. I was good at math, so people were like, hey, you should go draw stuff. And I'm like, all right. So I did that, went to college in Springfield, worked down there for quite a while. I moved up to KC about 15 years ago. Worked at a firm here for about 5 years and kind of was there and like, man, I think that, this always sounds like egotistical, but I think every entrepreneur has this thought of like, I could just do this better myself, right? And so I kind of thought like maybe I would want to try that. And so kind of like took a couple different paths to try to figure out how to do that without really taking the leap. Worked for some other firms that were looking for leadership, wanted somebody to move out to open another firm or another office location somewhere. At the end of the day, I just felt like I'm going to have to just do this on my own. So at some point, I feel like the fear of not trying like outpaced the fear of failing. Yeah. And so I'm like, all right, it's just gonna have to happen. So it's 2016 on paper. I filed my paperwork, licensed the name, did all that kind of legal stuff that's actually really easy to do. And then all of a sudden you've got a business and you got to figure out what that looks like. So that was kind of fun. I had a full-time gig at that point, worked for about another year. And then I quit my full-time job, had a part-time job, probably another year and a half after that. That guy that I was working for part-time retired. And so been on our own full-time Veritas since 2020. So right at 4 years ago this month, actually.
So obviously in the beginning it was just you.
Just me, yep. Yeah. Just me working working on my house or whatever.
Yeah.
Trying to take jobs where I could get them.
So these are what we call paying our dues, right? That little path you got to take along the way.
Yeah. The first 4 hours of the overnight success, right?
Yeah. So give me, I'm not in the architecture world other than reading prints and building things.
Yeah.
But what's some of the, I was thinking, everybody as they forge that path, what are some of the maybe awful things in architecture that you have to do to get through?
Yeah, that's a good call. So there's I think that a lot of people are very critical of architecture as a profession.
Sure.
And as an education, really. So everybody goes to architecture school, and in architecture school, they train you to be, the next Frank Gehry or Frank Lloyd Wright or Corbusier, some kind of famous star architect, as they're called. And 99.9% of graduates don't do that. And so you come out of school and you're kind of misty-eyed and you have this idea of what architecture is, and you start working in a profession, and it's not really that, right? But they've trained you almost a little bit. It's a little cult-like, to be honest.
Really.
And it's a little bit like in architecture school, they're like bow down to like the god of architecture, and kind of put up on a pedestal where it's really all about just doing, really cool design work, and everything's about design and doesn't really matter. None of your rest of your life matters. You should just really focus on design 24/7. And that's of course not very sustainable, especially if you want to have anything else in your life, like a family or whatever. So that culture that really starts in college, it permeates into the professional realm as well. And so there's a lot of firms, that have young guys and gals working there, working 70, 80 hours a week right out of school and not making a lot of money, and just doing it because they feel like they're doing it for like the love of the profession or the love of the art. And as you can imagine, that kind of culture permeates a lot of aspects. People don't have very good work-life balance, kind of a toxic culture in the office because everybody's just working so hard. It's hard to keep your chin up, really, right? So I think that's definitely one of the things that I wanted to combat or be the antithesis of whenever I started Veritas, and try to make it be where you could have a decent life outside of just the studio. Yeah.
Well, I know my daughter-in-law went into architecture and came out all fired up.
Yeah.
Want to be the next Frank Lloyd Wright. That's the goal, right?
Right.
And then she's designing racking for Walmart stores. And they're just pounding her with that stuff, and she's doing it for like 2 years, and she gets very discouraged and not really want to do architecture anymore.
It's tough, for sure. And a lot of people will work in, at large firms. We got some great firms at KC. We got some large firms, small firms, but you have a lot of people go out to a large firm and all they're doing is they're doing, that one thing over and over again. Let's do bathroom details or furniture racks or, whatever it is. And you don't really get a very good sense of what it really is that you're doing. So I was pretty fortunate. I started working at a very small firm in between my sophomore and junior years in college. And I worked there for a total of 9 years while I was in school. And because it was a small firm, I was able to just touch a lot of bits. So I was, managing projects that were good size, like brand new high school projects when I was, a year or two out of school. And so that was a great experience for me. I also grew up building. My stepfather was a home builder, so I know how to swing a hammer. I feel like that's always done well for me in the profession too.
Those are two interesting personalities at Thanksgiving dinner, right? Because the whole play on architects has been like it all works on paper, right?
Right.
And the builder's like, why is he drawing these lines? Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right.
I could imagine those conversations.
Yeah, like when so I started working for him when I was a teenager, as a kid, and I wanted to be an architect at that point too. And he's like, oh yeah, okay. And he's like, well, you got to promise me to always draw straight lines or whatever, And it's all these little jabs and stuff. But, that time with boots on the ground and wearing a tool belt and being out there and sweating. And that did well for me. And, it gives me a sense of how to relate to other contractors to this day. Here we are 30 years later, still feel like I can talk to people pretty well.
Well, I feel like you can always manage those situations or design something a little bit better if you've actually kind of been involved with that particular aspect of things.
Yeah.
And you find out the little tricks that are going on in those trades and how people do things and how stuff actually fits in real life.
Yeah. I think that's a big key. You look at it on paper and you've got, a paper and you've got infinite space, and you think about it, well, in real life, there's a man trying to get down here and get to this spot and do this thing, and he's got this type of a tool, and if you kind of have a little bit of knowledge about that, that sensibility comes through in the drawings and the way you create things.
Sure.
I think it's helpful.
So you break out on your own.
Yep.
Brand new. How do you get customers? How do you get the clientele?
So I remember like I said, I filed my paperwork for the LLC. It was June 21st of 2016, or July 21st, sorry, and then. Three weeks later, I got an invite from a friend of mine. He's like, "Hey, we're going to this poker game. I think it'd be good for you. You should come." I'm like, "Oh, sweet." I'm like, all right. So I have my business cards expedited, right? I got all right. So I'm going to the poker game. I knew there's going to be several players there. There's real estate developers there. There are contractors there, bankers there. So I'm like, oh, this is gonna be perfect. And that's really like where I got my start. We were sitting at a poker table. It's hosted by a contractor who's quit, sold his business and moved on, but hosted there. And I still have a lot of contacts from that first poker game.
Nice.
And I remember like handing out cards, like my hands all shaky. I'm like, yeah. I mean, I'm sure my voice is cracking. I got an architecture firm. It's like freshly minted. I hadn't really done anything,
Sure.
right? And so, but yeah, so for years I could trace back projects to either that poker table and guys I knew at that table, or a basketball match too. So there's a guy, Mitch Case, ran a basketball game group for a long time, a bunch of contractors and engineers and stuff, and got several projects out of that too. So basketball and poker are where the first couple of years of projects came from.
Are you still using that? Poker game?
Yeah. I mean, the contacts, that poker game is expired, but the contacts from there are still. I just went to Jason Carter Solomon. I met there. He's a banker with Landmark. We just went to a baseball game on Saturday. So, yeah, definitely great contacts. I was being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about the luck component of it, and that was definitely a piece of it, right?
Well, there's always luck, but to continue on it throughout the course of all these years, obviously you have to perform and deliver a quality product. So, yeah, that speaks volumes for sure. Your staff, what does it look like now?
Yeah, so today we have our main office is here in Kansas City. We office down in KCK. So we have 9 staff in that office, 3 or 4 architects, interior design, a couple of support type staff. We have another office in Northwest Arkansas with a second principal there. And we just hired the second employee there, just started last week. So we have 2 down there. And then we just started a relationship with somebody overseas, and we have 2 architects in India that work for us too.
Oh, wow.
So I think we're up to 13 total right now, including overseas and everybody.
Now, so then are you doing projects all over?
not over the world, but we just do work all over the country.
Oh, nice.
So I think we're licensed in maybe 35 or 40 states. Actually, just got licensed in Nevada today. So we do quite a bit of franchise work, and that kind of takes us all over the map.
That's what I was going to ask. Being ignorant to your world, what certifications and qualifications do architects have to go through?
Yeah. So man, it's changed. It makes me feel old when people ask questions like that. I got licensed in 2008. And it's changed a little bit since then, but the old school, the way I went to a 5-year school and graduate with a Bachelor of Architecture. Most of those have converted to a Master's of Architecture with the same amount of time. So I don't know how that works, but that's how it works. So graduate there, you intern for 3 years, and you have to get a certain number of hours of training, like on like real world training. You get that, and once you've gotten your hours, you submit, and they approve you to take your exams. Now, I think today you can take your exams right out of school, which I don't understand how that works really, but that's how it works.
Who is approving those?
It's called it's NCARB, National Council of Architecture Registration Board. So it's a national entity that kind of monitors for all the different states.
So they're just grading the work.
Basically. Yeah. They're making sure that you're doing the things right. And then it's several tests. So it was 9 for me. I think they're down to 6 now. You have to take these tests. On all aspects of architecture. We're really, as architects, we're beholden to the life, safety, and welfare of the public. Think about everything about that with doctors, but usually, doctors are in charge of, 15, 20, 30 people. We're responsible for thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people that are entering our buildings. Mm-hmm. And so that's the utmost concern for anybody for what we do from a public safety standpoint. So you get this license, and then you get licensed you have to get a license in every state that you do work in. Oh, wow. So I've had my Missouri license since 2008. And then in the past 3 or 4 years, I've added several other licenses to that. I think I'm licensed in 17 or 18 states, something like that.
So you do that franchise project, and that you got to get licensed in that state.
Yeah, that's right.
Whoa, is it tough in each and every state? Is it a little different?
It's definitely different. It's kind of crazy. Some states, there's a thing called reciprocity, right? And so since NCARB is in charge of the entire country, then you work through NCARB, and they'll take your license. Oh, you're licensed in Missouri? All right, give some money. We'll give you a license for Kansas, right?
All about the money.
All about the money, right? pay these guys, we'll give you a license, right? So most of the states are like that. Nevada was actually crazy. So Nevada, I had to do a bunch of things, and then they gave me an exam. They gave me a quiz I had to take, and I had 7 days to take this quiz, and it was open book, but I couldn't get any wrong. So it's 39 questions, and it was like really detailed questions about licensure laws in the state of Nevada. And so I had to take that quiz and turn it back around. I had to get 100% right. And then once you kind of go back and forth and get that done, then you'll get a license there.
How'd you do?
They told me I got 100% right.
Oh, nice.
I really think that they just tell you that, and then you give them the test, and they're like, oh, yeah, whatever. He went through the hassle doing it. I'm sure it's fine. So
makes them feel better to
right.
taking your money.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, oh, yeah, he's certified to do something.
Well, how much of architecture and engineering crossover? Do you have engineers in your firm, or you outsource that, or how's all that process work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So going all the way back to college. So in college, you usually have some engineering classes that are part of it, and it's like a surface level type of thing, right? So I know a little bit about structural engineering, a little bit about electrical, mechanical, all those things. And so what it's always been explained to me, and I think it makes a lot of sense. The difference between architects and engineers are architects know a fairly shallow amount about a really broad range of things, right? And engineers are kind of the opposite. They know a very deep amount about a very narrow scope of things, right? So we don't have an engineer that could be a mechanical engineer and design like the heating and cooling system for the building, but they don't know how to do like the electrical diagrams and layout, right? So they have a very narrow focus. And so it's kind of up to us as architects to know a little bit about everything. Ultimately, we're kind of responsible for it, right? So everybody falls under our umbrella. So to take that from like the white collar world to like the blue collar world, we're like the GC, right? So the GC has everybody underneath them. GC is telling all the subs what to do. We're kind of that same way, right? Like, so we have the client's vision in mind. We know enough about everything to kind of make sure it works and see some oversight. A lot of times we're doing some of the preliminary layout, like structural stuff, right? Like I know where the columns should be about, and so we're designing around what makes sense from a column standpoint. But when it comes to like the calculations for that column, that's where the engineers come in. Like, oh, this has to be a 4x4 column or whatever. Gotcha. And so we do outsource that. We're at the size now we're bringing a structural engineer on board and having structures in-house would really make sense. So if there's anybody out there listening who wants to come and join us, we need a structural engineer. And that happens pretty common. And then sometimes firms will get big enough where they'll bring all the engineers in-house.
So is there the same kind of tussle between engineers and architects that there are with architects and, say, home builders?
Yeah, I mean, there's a little. It's all tongue in cheek, right?
Yeah.
We both kind of we both need each other. But yeah, they kind of give us a hard time.
I mean, everybody always thinks their profession is the best in the building industry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're the ones that make it happen. We just make it look pretty, right? So that's kind of their take a little bit. So they give us a hard time.
Well, I mean, let's face it. Well, I mean, we're in a 21-story building. I'm trusting the architects and the engineers to get it right so this thing doesn't fall over.
Sure.
It's amazing. I don't know which building it is downtown Kansas City, but the cantilever on this thing, and I don't know, it's maybe 20 floors. The cantilever on this thing is so massive. I'm just like, I can't believe this thing has this cantilever on it. It structurally just doesn't make sense to me.
Yep.
And it's just quite amazing to see that 18 floors above this cantilever are supported.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
And sometimes it's that fascination that makes it worthwhile, right?
Oh, absolutely.
You're like, oh, like how does that actually work?
I mean, I would imagine since the days you said you were picking up a crayon and designing stuff, that's the stuff you want to design. The Walmart storage shelves are great and might get your foot in the door, but that stuff is the cool stuff to design.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody takes a little different approach on that, and I think, my approach personally has definitely shifted over, 25 years or whatever being in the profession, and I think, for me, I really want to create spaces where life happens, and that's kind of what that is. So, we are always in architecture or we're outside. So God's done a pretty good job out there. Maybe I can do a decent job with the inside part, right? I think that's kind of our approach and thought is how do we make spaces that help people live out and have memories,
Sure.
create dreams, all those type of things, right?
Yeah, I mean, just coming up with something different where people can enjoy that space.
Yeah.
Well, how many times do you go to, for like my wife and I, we go to a restaurant, little hole in the wall, but the atmosphere, the design of the place, sometimes I just feel like it makes the food taste better.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, definitely, I'm not going to talk about, too many franchises or, Applebee's or whatever,
Sure.
right? But they all have that same thing and they all kind of feel the same way. And when you walk in there, what you're going to get, and you go to something else that's been, curated to that specific cuisine or that chef or that location or whatever. We just got back from a trip in Europe for 3 weeks. And so all of it, you're eating in all these old buildings that have such nostalgia and feel to them. And as an architect, you're like, man, there's something about being here aside from what the food is.
Yeah, it's so cool.
For
all
sure.
that stuff when you look at stuff that's been built,
Yeah.
a couple hundred years ago or even 1,000 years ago,
Right.
still standing. Yeah, it's been over there myself too, and it's amazing. We're missing a little bit out of over here. We have history, obviously, but we don't have that sort of history.
That's right.
Some of that stuff's pretty cool. I know our audience can't see this, but this little picture you have on your website of this.
Yeah.
What is this in your office?
That's our office, yeah.
And is that just a little conference room or?
That's one of the offices. So we've got our office is pretty open layout, but we have two, I guess, private offices. I occupy one, and another architect in our office occupies the other one. So
if you can't see this picture, go to Travis's website. But is that drywall? Is it just covered in drywall, or is it something else?
Well, behind there is something else. So
Sure.
The story about that. So our landlords bought that building and hired us to design, to redo it. So we came in and scrapped a bunch of it out, and we wanted to build our own office in there. And so we kind of, did some horse trading or whatever around that, and then decided we're going to build our office out. And we wanted to do something a little bit fun and make it a little bit different. We were just talking about old buildings, right? That building is a 1930s building, and so I really love, the juxtaposition. Throw a big architecture word on there, but the juxtaposition between the old and
Sure.
something new, and really helping those play off of each other. And that's what we're trying to do. Like, all right, how do we do something where we kind of play with it a little bit? And so at that point in time, nobody on our team had done any construction other than myself. And so I'm like, hey, look, we're going to build this out, and we're going to make these funky walls. And so, the 3 or 4 of us that were around at that point, pull our tool belts on and framed out those walls and framed out all those wacky angles, and kind of had this idea of this kind of geometric shape like flowing through the office. So it kind of flows from one side to the other. And then we clad it in plywood, and then we walked away and said, "Good luck, drywall guys." Sorry. But they did a great job. They finished out for us, and we kind of got a little bit of construction experience, so it's fun.
That's fantastic. Yeah, we did a little playhouse for the HBA, and we were like, okay, what can we put together? And I said, well, let's just do something goofy. It's kind of like a Dr. Seuss theme. And so building this house crooked, slanted, it was really bizarre because you're so used to putting everything together level and plumb and square, and all of a sudden you're building this thing crooked. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to put all that together and mess with all those geometric shapes.
Yeah. We knew, like, we weren't originally planning on building it, and at some point we were trying to do drawings for it, and like we're never going to be able to draw this.
It's probably better off if you just do it.
Yeah. So we kind of like, we'd be on site and like holding the 2x4 up there at this wacky angle, and we kind of like tack it in place and back up. Like, no, that's not right, and adjust it.
Nice.
So it was a fun process.
Yeah, it's a cool piece.
Yeah.
I like it.
Thanks.
Hey, so we design kitchens here, and we have revisions. But I was curious on your level, and obviously billable hours. How does that work in your profession, where you're on such large scale projects, and obviously there could be multiple revisions, and maybe the customer's doesn't really have a clear idea on what the vision is of what the project they bring you. Mm-hmm. How do you guys handle all that stuff?
Well, I mean, that varies broadly on the project types, right? So we do a pretty broad range of project types. Since you mentioned kitchens, I'll just talk about single-family residential work, which we do quite a bit of. So we do some spec homes. We do some super high-end custom homes. We do some work. We're actually doing some work for Habitat for Humanity right now, kind of helping create a new catalog of homes for them. And so those are pretty vastly different, right? And so if we're doing something like that, and we've got a few revisions, they kind of understand it and they're getting it, but we're trying to do that in a way where we can really hone in on making those drawings as easy to build as possible, and the homes as easy to build because it's a lot of volunteer labor, right? So there's definitely a different goal in mind for that. For the custom single family, a lot of times it's somebody's forever home, right? It's probably the most expensive thing they've ever purchased, right? So we've got a house now that's probably about a $2.5 or $3 million house, and we're working through those revisions with this couple, and they kind of had a vision in mind. They've got really great land. They've got a great site that they kind of knew how they wanted the house to be, but they had no real idea of what the aesthetic of the house was or what that wanted to look like. And so we go through some different exercises to try to help figure that out, right? Because what we're really trying to do is put ourselves in the mind of our client as much as we can. So the goal for us is to take their goals and hopes and dreams and our expertise and like kind of smash that together, right? So we can be making educated decisions with their goals in mind. We call that goal empathy in our office, but that's kind of the idea of what we're trying to do. Thanks.
Yes, I like that.
But there's a lot of back and forth, right? And,
Sure.
and they'll give us images of things that they like, and they'll give us images of things that they hate, and we're trying to figure out, what do you hate about this? What do you love about that?
A lot of Pinterest pictures for you.
Yeah, Pinterest and Instagram, right? I don't know if that stuff makes it better or worse. We've got some AI stuff that comes to us sometimes, but it's really just all trying to hone in on that. It's such a crazy thing because we've got one shot to get it right. We're not doing prototypes for the most part. It's not like a car where they can do a couple different models and have the concept car and then get it out there. Now they got the prototype done. It's one shot. This is going to be their house where they're living. And so especially for the residential stuff, it's super personal. And if somebody's spending that kind of money on a home, then it needs to be right. And so usually they get that. Usually they understand that paying us more to work on it longer is worth it because it's still fractional of the cost of what the overall house is, right? And so I think that makes sense. It definitely, I think they always want us to figure it out quicker, and they probably always think that it's easier than what it really is. But for the most part, we really try to walk through that process with the clients, engage them, and really be kind of like with them. I think we consider ourselves like guides through the process.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be. I think some people might see those pictures and know what they want, but to actually help them with that vision.
Yeah.
I guess that's what we're all here for.
For sure. I mean, it's asking a lot of questions, really. Just trying to, it's interviewing and listening well.
Yeah. What's some of the biggest hurdles you run into on any of the projects?
It's construction, so it's time and money, right? It's always time and money.
Timelines.
Yeah, timelines, on both ends, on design end and on the construction end. we lay out a pretty good timeline. Anytime we get hired for a project, make sure there's an expectation from the client for us what we would need that timeline to be. But invariably, something comes up and it shifts that. Clients will throw us a curveball in the 11th hour and be like, oh well, I know we wanted that little home gym and it was about 300 square feet, but we decided we want a 1,500 square foot gym. Can you just can you make that adjustment real quick? And you're like, yeah,
Sure.
real quick.
Well, it's fascinating in our business, isn't it? Because it's always seems to be a push.
Yeah.
Like I've always said, even my own mother, I remodeled her house years ago, and she was like, when can we get this done?
Yeah.
I'm like, how about you just relax and give us the time to get it done right, and you'll be happy when it's done, but nobody really wants to do that.
No, I mean, yeah, I think that once you start that process, I don't know if it's just exciting or it's usually always you've waited too long to start anyway, right?
Sure.
So as soon as you actually get started, you've been thinking about starting for months or years, and so you start off the clock and you're already negative.
Well, I like what you said about empathy because that's part of it. We're in this business all the time, every day. It's not that this work becomes boring, but we understand it and we know there's going to be delays and changes, and so it's just normal to us. And I think most customers, it might be the first project they've ever done, or they've saved their whole life for it, or whatever that may be. And then when they get into it, they're so excited. It's just a gigantic push, and they don't understand there's going to be some problems into the delays, but it all generally get worked out in the end, and you'll get what you want. It's going to throw a loop and little hiccup in some things.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, I think that it's like anything, trying to lay out expectations, right? And it's tough because I think building a custom home is a very arduous process. I mean, it's 100% worth it, right?
Yeah.
And you get something that's uniquely suited to you. It's not available. It's a fantastic thing. I live in a house that we designed. We've designed several custom homes for families that love it and couldn't get anything else. There's no way else to have the house that they have, right? But you don't realize the time and the effort and the number of decisions you're going to have to make. I mean,
It's a lot.
if you're doing custom, you got to pick out every single thing that's going in that house, right? Now we're here to help with that and to get rid of a bunch of options that don't make sense right off the bat and present you with those options. But there's a lot there. There's a lot of things that you're going to be thinking about that you never thought you'd be thinking about.
Yeah, it can be a little overwhelming
For sure.
somebody, especially on their first project.
Yeah.
So I'll date myself a little bit. 8th grade architecture class obviously was drafting.
Yeah.
Pencil, paper, ruler.
Yep.
That was it. How has technology obviously helped your profession, but what's exciting about all the new stuff?
Yeesh. It's funny because I don't think that I'm that much younger than you. I was probably about that same time. And, whenever I was in college, even the first couple years of college, it was all hand stuff.
Yeah, nice.
They wouldn't let us touch a computer. And I had taken, CAD classes in high school, and I even did CAD stuff at the community college when I was in high school and stuff. So I've seen kind of it go from still hand drawing to where we are now. And it's pretty incredible. There's definitely pros and cons to it. The software that we use now is I don't want to get too geeky about it, but it's a BIM software. And so you're creating, the drawings are all being created in a 3D. So you're making a model, a virtual model, and then taking views and snapshots of that model, as opposed to drawing lines like we used to do. We used to draw lines by hand, and we'd go to AutoCAD, we'd draw lines in the computer. And now with the new technology, it's all 3D stuff. So even just putting a door in, it's a 3-dimensional door with hinges and latches and all the things, right? And so that's got some pros and cons to it. But one thing that's pretty cool is the visualization piece that you can share with your clients. It's pretty great. So we have the VR headsets you can put on.
Oh, cool.
And you can put the VR headset on, and you can you can kind of look around and you can walk through the space.
I was going to say, so they can walk through their house?
Yeah. It plays just like a video game, right?
Nice.
I mean, we even have an Xbox controller that hooks up to our computer, and you just walk through, and it's just like playing, a first-person shooter. You don't have a gun. You can walk through and look up and down and put yourself in the space. And that visualization is really cool. It's a lot of work to make that look right. And so there's an expectation piece there of if you as a client really want it to look like, you're really stepping into their house, there's a lot of extra time and money that's going to be spent
Sure.
to get that there. But if you want to have a decent idea of kind of how the space feels or how it looks on the outside, how it fits in the context, we can do that pretty well.
Well, that'd be fun.
So it's pretty cool. I mean, I got to admit, we did that. I mentioned earlier, we live in a house that I designed, and me having those conversations with my wife, who's not a designer at all, really spurred a lot of us buying that technology. Because
You getting good feedback from the customers that have done that?
yeah, definitely. It is like, and I've got kind of side by side images of like, look, this is what we thought it would look like. This is what the screenshot was, and here's what the actual product looks like. And you're like, oh, it's pretty dang close.
Nice. So you mentioned your wife. Was she there in the beginning when you decided to take the leap?
Yeah. And that was probably why, there was some hesitation up front. I think we just had our second kid, right? So we had a couple kids, and it's like, that's a lot, right? Yeah. So, she's been super supportive. She's always worked. She's way smarter than I am, and does other things that are, provide a good income for the family as well. So definitely some stability and kind of having that W-2 that she's always had. Give me a little bit more comfort to go out on my own, and then just emotional and all the other type of support that a spouse can lend.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
It's funny, everybody that's married that comes on the podcast has said that their wife is smarter than them. I don't know if they actually are or if it's because they're being recorded.
Good question. We'll see if she listens to it or not, right?
For sure. Your staff, I wanted to ask you about Vanessa.
Yeah.
So you guys put your little hobbies on there. She's an urban fiction aficionado. Does she get the staff involved with that? Is there some trivia stuff going on?
Not specifically around that. That doesn't surprise me. Yeah, we've got, it's funny because I think that our staff overall, we kind of, collect kind of like the derelict, like castaways. So
Sure.
We've got a lot of people in our office that are, didn't find architecture for their first or second or third career.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of been fun, helped shape our office and the culture that we have.
Absolutely.
It's helped us, I think, to kind of like push back on that status quo that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So she's definitely got some quirky interest for sure.
Yeah, it's somebody I could sit and talk to. That sounded very interesting.
Uh-huh.
Well, it's good that you appreciate that, because I think that lends to just the cohesiveness of what the staff would how they work together and everything.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because everybody individually is pretty different from each other, but then we get together and do stuff outside the office, and it's cool how we all kind of come together and understand what our strengths and weaknesses are, and really truly function like a team. I think a lot of firms have some really maybe kick-ass designers, but it's not really a team approach. It's just really like, this is my design, and we're doing this. I think we take a better team approach, so it's been good.
Well, it's tough to put a team together in an office. Get all the right personalities clicking together.
For sure.
Same path to success.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What anything you guys do outside the office for fun, or even in the office, just to alleviate some of the pressures?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. To me, I think there's a lot of firms out there that do kind of like we got a ping pong table in the back room or whatever like that, right? Or and I think that we really try to make it more of like an everyday thing of us, like every day really focusing on our core values and how we come together as a team, and it really kind of infiltrates all parts of what we do. That being said, we do things out of the office. We had a sand volleyball team we put together this summer, and we all played sand volleyball. We have quarterly events that we all get together and go do something fun. So this past quarter, what did we do? We went and did an escape room one time. So we've done a bunch of those type of things. I think a lot of it is really just kind of keeping everybody together on the same page and just expressing the vision of what we're trying to do as a firm. And really, we try to focus a lot on just I hate to say like work-life balance because that's really cliche, but we come in, we work hard, we get our stuff done, and we make sure we have time, for our families and stuff outside the office. We got other people go out and we'll grab happy hours on Friday afternoon or whatever, and usually people with families don't do that, and the other ones do. But it's all kind of, everybody's pretty cohesive that way.
Well, I don't know if that term work-life balance was even a term maybe 5 years ago, but I certainly appreciate the younger generation bringing that in, because it's even helped me, assess my day-to-day to where, you get in the office super early, you stay super late, you just grind. And so, yeah, it's really helped kind of calm it down a bit and get the work done.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the biggest part. If you come in and you get your work done, you can be really, really efficient and get a lot done in 40 or 45 hours, or you can come in and be inefficient and get a little bit of work done in 60 hours. Right. And I think that's kind of how how we are different than a lot of other places, at least I've worked.
We usually have a formal holiday party at the end of the year, right? And so it's just some people are comfortable with that, some people are not. So we decided last year to do, we just all met at Serve and did a pickleball event.
Yeah.
You know, wings and beer kind of thing. And ended up, everybody showed up, which hadn't happened on the formal events.
Yep.
And everybody had a great time, and we learned a lot about each other. And
That's awesome.
And who was more competitive and who wasn't, and you know, who was ruthless. And ended up being quite a bit of fun. So.
How many people do you got on your team?
Out of this office, we run about 32 on average. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. They brought their spouses, and so it was just a lot of laughter that night. But it was good to put the team together like that.
That's great. Yeah. So far we've done. We'll go out to dinner as a team for the holiday party, and then just come back to my house, and we'll just kind of like play some games and have some drinks at my house. So hopefully we can keep doing that. You know, keep growing and stuff like that. So maybe at some point we'll outgrow my house. But so far it's been a great way to kind of people feel comfortable and. Get to know each other on a personal basis and spouses and everything like that.
Well, I think it certainly helps some of the office pressure to get outside and talk to people, not about work.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, even like the volleyball thing. We had our spouses played volleyball with us, so that's a cool connection too. Yeah. Whenever I look over and I see, you know, Vanessa's boyfriend talking to, you know, my wife or something like that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's like we're all kind of just people at the end of the day.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'm glad you do that kind of stuff.
Thanks.
What? So you mentioned houses. What other kind of projects have been that you guys do, but maybe some that have been your favorite?
Yeah. So I mentioned our office too. I really love doing that kind of work. The old and the new together, I think is great. You know, we talked a little bit about like going overseas and how they have all the old stuff over there. But I think anytime we are able to find something here that's kind of old and got a different level of craft to it, and then we can kind of like take that and treat that the right way and maybe add something a little bit new to it. So I think the downtown redevelopment stuff is really cool. So, you know, we office in downtown KCK for that reason, try to do some historic projects. We've got some historic projects going on right now down there. I did a lot of that early in my career as well. So those are probably those, and then the single family homes are probably my favorite thing. Even when we do kind of new construction, we like to do it in a more urban context and environment so we can, you know, kind of play off again, like what's there now. So we'll do like multifamily or mixed use type of developments in like urban sites, like we call it like infill lots, right? So instead of going out to the suburbs and taking up more ground out there, you know, we'll do something in like Strawberry Hill is where we live, you know, where our office is now. And we've got a nice project going on over in Hospital Hill. It's kind of like an old lot that we're going to put an old boutique type of multifamily building on, about 30 or 40 units. So pretty excited about that too.
Strawberry Hill, is that they have the arts festival tonight or
arts fair? Yeah, it's tonight. Yeah,
is it tonight?
Yeah. So our office is typically open. This month we're not, but usually we participate. We open our doors up and have the community in and serve some wine and cheese and the whole deal. It's a pretty cool thing. If you haven't been down there, you should check it out.
I just found out about today. One of our template tech actually lives in Strawberry Hill.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, you should come down to this night. And I go, what's it all about? I'm new to Kansas City here, only been here 5 years. So
okay.
I said, yeah, it sounds fantastic. He gave me the link, and looks like a good time.
It's a fun party. It's kind of blown up. It used to be around a long time ago, and then we kind of restarted it with a couple of other organizations about 4 years ago. And so just in the last 4 years, it's grown a bunch. It's pretty cool.
Oh, nice. Little sidebar. Saw you drive up in a Rivian.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a big car guy. What's that? Probably my favorite electric truck that's out there.
Agreed.
You like it?
I do, yeah. So I was on a long hunt for a new car about a year or two ago, and I thought I probably wanted to be electric, so I drove all the electric cars that were available, and that's where I landed. So I've had it right about a year now, about last September. So it's great. You know, we don't have the infrastructure for it, so going on trips is pretty tricky.
Yeah.
You know, I can drive to St. Louis as long as I've got a place to charge as soon as I get there.
Oh, okay.
And then same way with Bentonville, that's where our Northwest Arkansas office is in Bentonville. And so same thing. As long as I know where I'm charging, I can drive there and charge, and then you're kind of stuck.
Is there an app that lets you know about charging stations for? Oh, are there?
Yeah,
okay.
It's all pretty smart and pretty integrated. Like I can go to the truck, or even like on my phone, I could say, hey, I want to go to LA, and it'll say, all right, here's your path to LA, and here's all your stops along the way,
wow.
and it'll tell you how to get there. I think most electrical vehicles are like that. But the Rivian's it's a fun truck. You know, we were actually talking about this the other day, and we got you got like the Ford F-150 Lightning, right, which is an electric truck, and you got the Tesla Cybertruck now, right, and the Rivian's kind of in between there. And it seemed like Ford just took their F-150 and electrified it.
Yeah.
Elon just took the whole idea of a truck and just completely flipped it on its head. And it's a little bit different, but I can appreciate what he did there from a design standpoint.
Sure.
And the Rivian folks, they really just said, all right, we know what a pickup truck is. Let's make it as good as we can within that context. And it's really pretty cleverly designed. I think it's got a lot of nice design to it and a lot of cleverness.
Yeah, well, as an architect and someone in design and with a creative mind, that's the truck that just stands out. It's kind of cool. I think you're right. Elon's is a little bit out there for me.
Yeah,
I can appreciate it. I'd like to see. I haven't been inside of one. I'd like to see what it kind of looks like on the inside. But yeah, it's a little bizarre. And I don't really see the Ford Lightning around that much.
Yeah, you can't really. I mean, we got a few around that I've seen, but they look like a regular F-150. That's like headlights are a little different or something.
So the Rivian got probably obviously electric power, gets up and goes pretty quickly.
Yeah, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat. So
That's fantastic.
835 horsepower. So I have the quad motor, so it's got one motor per each wheel.
And rides nice.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, I haven't had a pickup truck in a long time. I grew up in rural Missouri, so I grew up with pickup trucks, but I haven't had one in a while. So I mean, it drives like a truck. It's not as smooth as driving a 5 Series or whatever, but yeah, it rides well. I test drove it, and I told my wife, I'm like, well, I can't think of a more perfect vehicle for me, so I think we're going to have to get it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it looks great.
Thanks.
One last question I'd like to ask. What have you learned from your failures?
Oh, man. That they're not really failures. I mean, that's kind of a cop-out answer, but, you just learn. So definitely have done a lot of things that did not go the way that I would have wanted them to go. But yeah, you just learn a lot from them. And I think that that's the thing too. The more times you fail, the more comfortable you get with it, and the less afraid you are. And you kind of realize that even if you quote fail, like it, a few months later, probably that's not going to matter. We've taken some big swings, and definitely missed. And at the end of the day, it's like, oh, well, that was a great experience, and now I know better for the next time.
Yeah, I think what you said at the very beginning about just go ahead and jumping in. Being a little bit afraid to fail, but go ahead and just tackle that project or tackle that, this new business. You just have to get into it and realize that it's not as scary as you probably imagined.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us today. I appreciate it.
I enjoyed the talk.
Obviously, I've always been around architecture with the stuff we build and that sort of thing, but never really been in the office. I do have one more question I was thinking about. You mentioned architects kind of as a cult. It is tough to get sometimes into architect offices to do presentations or what's the secret to get behind the all-powerful mighty curtain of Oz?
Yeesh. It's I think this is again a generic answer, but it's relationship, right? Like once you build a rapport, I think that's the thing. Like if your first talk to me, your first phone call is, hey, I want to come present you and sell you stuff. Then it's not any different than a customer.
Yeah.
Most customers are going to be turned off by that. But if it's getting to know somebody, referrals are great. But a little bit of a relationship will go a long ways. Now I know you can call me up anytime. Come into my office now. But I think that's the key, right? Like just go meet somebody, have a drink with somebody, get to know who they are as a person, and then once that relationship's established, it's amazing what people do for you.
It's so important, isn't it?
For sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. It was super interesting. Awesome. I love what you're doing. I would love to see the office. Just even the pictures alone I love all that stuff.
Cool.
I love all the old time stuff, the new modern stuff, where everybody ties all that stuff together. I've always been able to build things, and I see some things as I build. But as far as some of those extra creative ideas that are out there, like when I walk through a museum and I see how people put stuff together and how they curate it all, I'm like, wow, that's a fantastic idea. and I love that people can get there in their own spaces. So
for sure.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm Doug with CKF. I'm the VP here in Lenexa. Thanks for watching. Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, Doug. Appreciate it.